approval of the meeting minutes, unless there's, I suppose I can actually pull up the agenda, but what was the, did you have an update or anything, Margaret?
No, I mean, just that we've been working with LOB and Daedalus to look at some of the interiors and offer suggestions based on staff input, and I think they have some of those to show you this evening. The 3D views of the space really kick it up a notch and allow us to imagine what the space would really be like, and have made it that much easier to visualize the possibilities. So I know they have some of those to show you tonight, and hopefully you'll enjoy them as well. We next door to us, I know most of you have, if not all of you, have driven by and seen the vacant lot now, and they reseeded it today so that there'll be grass growing there soon, and it'll just look much more finished. They took the construction fence down today, and it looks great, and it's there for when we need it.
That's good.
This time of year, that grass will come up and pretty quick.
Sure will.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So meeting notes. Margaret had sent out the meeting notes from our last meeting of May 14th. Are there any comments on these meeting notes?
No.
Can I have a motion to approve the meeting notes from someone?
So moved.
Thank you, Samantha. Seconded by, I gotta see who, by Andy. Perfect. And could we have a roll call vote? Oh shoot, did they start recording? Did we screw this up?
Yes. No, it's recording.
Okay. Roll call vote. Margaret, are you in favor?
I am.
Okay, thank you. Andy, are you in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. John Irish?
Yes.
Thank you. Was Dennis able to join us? Somebody popped on, I thought. Nope. Okay. Samantha, you obviously, because you motioned. Yes. Steve Leduc. I'm just going through my list.
Approve.
Thank you. Tom DePercio.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Ooh, look at Mr. Getsunis is the one who popped up. That's who's confusing me. Tom Abel, was he able to join us yet? I don't see him on the list.
Nope.
Okay. Steve Kerrigan. Are you? I marked you as present. Are you here? Yeah, you're on. I see you on there. Are you able to approve notes? Are you willing to approve notes?
No.
Oh, you weren't here last night.
He's not part of the committee.
Oh,
He's an
okay.
observer. Yep.
Sorry. All right. Never mind, Steve. All right. Thank you.
Vinny Faree.
Passed unanimously. All right. I'm flashing, reading my list and looking at the screen, so I apologize.
Alicia, did Vinny vote? Vinny, did you vote?
No.
Oh, right. Vinny, I'm sorry, because you're on a different part of my list. Vinny, are you in favor?
Yes.
Yay.
Thank you very much. I apologize. Whew. Thank you for the help, all. All right, excellent. So I think the next thing on our agenda is if I can find it, my agenda, is the design update. Mallory, do you want to take us through your design update?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you. We have a couple things to show you tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about the exterior and some solar shading techniques that we wanted to present to you. And then, as Margaret mentioned, we're going to show a little bit about the interior. So the reason we don't need you to decide on, there's one thing we need you to vote on, but nothing, I think you guys can handle it. And then it's important because we're going to be using this information for the design development drawings that are going to be handed off to the estimator in 2 weeks from today, June 24th. So what we're going to show you is a cost impact and I'm just going to start. So wait, I forgot to share my screen. I actually cannot share my screen.
Your calendar's beautiful. It looks a little stark and lonely, but it is a lovely calendar.
Can you see my screen?
Yep, I see your calendar. It must be your calendar.
No.
It's a purple
No.
Tom's calendar. Am I wrong, or is that my lovely calendar? Yeah, it looks
I think
lovely.
that's your
What
calendar.
happened?
I see. I see the
Calendar.
I think the meeting organizer, maybe Mark, needs to make me a presenter.
I don't know where the whole meeting went. Oh, I see. It got small. That's the issue. The whole meeting. Never mind. I'm having my own crisis over here. So.
Is this Mallory?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. My apologies. Retry.
Okay.
There we go.
Can see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Okay. So we're just going to sort of get right into it. The last time we met, we left off with talking about the exterior and some techniques that we can use to mitigate some of the solar glare that is just present because we have glass in the building. And one way that we talked about last week was talking about fritted glass. So we sort of breezed over that, and we just want to take a second this week to really review what that is and then review some of the other techniques that we reviewed. So just very briefly, this is a very technical slide, and I'm just going to breeze over this. Fritted glass is something that LLB is recommending for this job because it's a very durable. Do you want me to wait for someone who's waiting in the meeting room? I'm going to just admit that person. It's a really durable solution to blocking solar heat gain. And that's the really critical thing that you guys should understand when you think about fritted glass is that it blocks solar heat gain. It's not like a shade where it sort of just blocks the light, because a shade on the interior is still allowing some of that heat to transfer from the exterior to the interior. And then there's other methods we're going to walk you through that also allow that transfer. But fritted glass is different, whereas it's a ceramic that's actually melted onto the face of the glass. It's super durable. It doesn't wipe off. It doesn't decay over time. It won't peel off. It's like built into the glass. Some of the benefits, as I quickly mentioned, is that it will reduce solar heat gain. It will modulate light permanently, whereas some of the other items will peel off. It'll reduce glare. It's long-lasting, UV resistant, and it's noticeable to birds, which has become quite an issue in the architecture world with glazing. So there's two ways that patterns can be applied. One is the silk screen method, and that's like a very old method, and it's very popular. It's still in use today. The only reason people have deviated recently is because it's limited to some patterns and colors, whereas there's digital printed versions that have unlimited designs. So I just want you to know that there's different ways of applying it. In our circumstance, we would recommend the silk screen tried and true method. The only other thing we want to point out about the pictures on this page are how fritted glass alters the interior environment. So the image on the left, you can see, is a very stripy, very dense vertical pattern. And because the opacity is a little bit darker than the image on the right, it's creating a really dark shadow and a really dark cast inside the building, which can be somewhat distracting to people on the inside. And then whereas if you look at the image on the right, you can see the shadow that's cast on the floor. This is a different pattern, a little bit more regulated and creating a little bit more of an even tone on the floor. And then you can see based on the shadows on the ground, there were some areas that the designer decided not to put any fritted glass to allow all of the light to come in. And you can see that sort of in the patterns here. I wouldn't get too hung up on this because this is a really like exaggerated view, and it really depends on like the angle of the sun, the location. So it's just something for us to keep in the back of our mind. We want to just show you quickly examples of what it looks like from the exterior, and there's so many different patterns that you can do. This lower left image we wanted to put up because this is actually a semi-local library if anyone wanted to drive by. It's in Webster, and you can see some of the glass fritting that's above, and it's sort of this really organic pattern, a little bit darker where there's the interstitial space at the floor plate, and then lighter again. But all of these images just show that there's so many different patterns, and how you lay it out and organize it will really help dictate where you allow light and don't allow light. You can see here there's sort of like this coin pattern, but it's only on the upper one. It's not on the lower. This one in the lower right-hand corner is really nice because it's like a gradient from like a lot of dots to like a little bit dots. So that's one way to sort of control that. To control the light. And then other people, more like this upper right one, and I'd say this left one, use it as like a design element to sort of break up the glass facade. So as I mentioned briefly, with the silkscreen method, you are limited to one color, but I think that works to your benefit because we don't want this to sort of take on a life of its own. You can do anything from dots to lines to gradients and fading. And then there's also custom sketches that we can do. And since everything is manufactured and made for the glass for your project, technically everything is quote unquote custom. So there's no, it's all pretty much the same. These are just already pre-designed that you can just sort of slap on the building if you wanted to. So we're just going to go into some of the patterns that we have. I'm going to stick with this upper West Main Street view, just because it's a lot to go through all the views for all of the options. So option one you saw last week is just the plain horizontal fritting. And this is an image zoomed in. And as you can see where the interstitial space is, it's really condensed line weight, and then it sort of fades out. We didn't feel this was too successful in the manner that it was supposed to really be blocking out some of that solar heat gain. Yes, it's nice aesthetically and it sort of breaks up the glass and the facade, but we wanted to push this further. So we explored another option. This option is a little bit different, whereas instead of the stripes being horizontal, these stripes are vertical in nature. And you can see that these stripes are opaque and semi-opaque in some locations, and then they sort of, I don't want to use the word drip, but they like there's varying degrees of the stripes, and then there's some areas that are completely clear so that you still have really nice views out, but it's helping to block some of that view in. The thing with this one is I'm going to show you what we've done and why we're showing it to you, but also why we've developed another option. So the reason we went past this option, although it's still viable if somebody really likes it, is we felt like maybe it was a little bit too modern in comparison to the Carnegie building, especially like at the zipper knuckle zone of the glass that actually touches the Carnegie. So the next one we did was a little bit more of a lighter touch. And this is just a gradient and a frosting. And you can see in this zoomed in view that it sort of radiates out from this interstitial space, and it radiates up, and then it'll radiate down. And then again from the top down. So we like this. This is very subtle, but we thought maybe it was a little bit too subtle. And then we started to think, well, do these pavilions, meaning these wings of glass, do they want to be different from the zipper? So the glass that actually touches the Carnegie building, which is why we came up with the last option. And before I flip there, a lot of the inspiration for the last option was just based on semi-recent conversations with Margaret and with the staff and some of the ideas or the content for the inside of the building. And so what we have here is, and I'm going to zoom in, it's sort of a mix. We've got two different languages because we wanted to do something a little bit more traditional at the Carnegie building, which is here, and then something a little bit more organic at the addition. And so what you can see here is there's horizontal lines at the Carnegie where the glass is, and then there's a mix of vertical lines, but also you can see very lightly like a trace of like a graphic image of tree branches, so that it sort of creates that like urban oasis off of West Main Street. So it creates a little bit more shading here. And so I'm not sure if you can see that. It's a little bit difficult, but this is just a concept. What we're proposing you today are just a bunch of different designs, and there's tons more that we can talk about. We just sort of wanted to have a jumping point, whether you like horizontal, vertical, the gradient, the organic theme. And then the next thing I want to show you is, and this is just to give you guys a heads up that this wasn't the only exterior solar shading means that we explored. I'm going to show you some rough drafts that we went through internally. We did show Margaret. They're very rough drafts, so they're not meant to be pretty, but they were quick studies for us to see what it would look like. So I'm first just going to start with these 3 renderings of this is what your building looks like, black and white, with just the base curtain wall. So you can see here in this corner that there's nothing added to here. There's no solar shading. There's no fritted glass. There's nothing. Same with this off of Witherby Street. The Marlborough Public Library is the only signage that's on this side. And then again from Upper West Main Street. So this is sort of like was our base that you guys have seen and you've seen rendered. What we explored after that was an option where I'm going to zoom in. Okay. Was an option where we sort of reduce the amount of glass on West Main Street, and then we have like sun solar shading devices that are sandwiched between brick panels. This would be an exterior applied system. We decided to move away from this because we felt it looked a little bit too clunky in comparison to the Carnegie building, but also we felt like it would end up being sort of a maintenance nightmare in the fact that, you know, these are horizontal planes and that they would get dusty and dust would settle on them. And I've actually just saw that recently in a library and I can't remember what it was, but this is why we moved away from this, but this would be an exterior applied system. And then you can sort of see that in this Witherby Street elevation as well. It would be an exterior applied system. The next one that we explored is also an exterior applied system, and this was going back to all glass and then wrapping that system around the corner. But again, this had the same faults as the previous one. It's an exterior applied system, and it's still a maintenance issue. And then by the time we started adding it everywhere, it was starting to like overwhelm the glass, and it didn't give that light and airy feel that we wanted the glass to have. So the last one is, and I think Tom said you guys have this on your new middle school, is elementary school, is sort of like this, what we call like the brim, the hat brim option. And they're sort of like these extent 2 feet or 30 inches extended pieces of metal that block light at different rates depending on where the light is or where the sun is in the sky. Because they protrude so far from the building, we thought that they looked sort of just applied and a little bit foreign, and it also didn't solve any of our items or issues at like the glass that's next to the Carnegie, because it would be too hard to apply that system here because it would interact. It would be a little bit offensive to the Palladian window and that clash right there in the corner. So the point of running through that quickly was sort of just to show you guys the options that we've reviewed for exterior applications. We even looked at interior applications, which proved to be a little bit too expensive, which is how we ended up with the fritted glass option. So what we're hoping that you guys can discuss and review today is looking at the fritted glass or approving the fritted glass. You don't need to approve a design, but it's approving the fritted glass over these other exterior applied systems. I'm going to stop there before I move on to the interior because I just threw a lot at you.
I wanted to also add that I did contact the library director in Webster to ask her how the fritted glass that they had, which is colors as opposed to white, which is kind of what we've seen this evening, how that was working years after installation. And she likes it very much. She said it has worked well for them and that she did recommend it. So just offering that.
Alicia, do they have colors there? I didn't see it.
I think it's
no, there are no colors. It's all white. They're colored wool shades behind the glass, but the actual treatment to the glass is a white frit.
Okay.
A white ceramic frit.
Does Webster have a patent to it?
Webster's does. I will show you.
It kind of looked like a crystal subtle image. Okay.
Webster has sort of like a broken, almost like a broken
Looks
chip.
like a DNA. It looks like a DNA chain.
Yes, a
Yeah.
DNA strain. Yeah,
But
that's what it looked like.
But it was dense at the floor level,
Right here.
and lightened up as the approached the roof, and lightened up as it approached the floor. But that is pretty much the southwest exposure for the project, so they got a lot of afternoon sun, and it really helped reduce the, just the overall glare. And it does not really impose on your view of looking out or anything like that. If you want to focus on the dots, you can, but generally it does not. It's hard to see the subtlety in there of the system the architects put in behind this large expanse 2-floor glass, or these shades, which are also perforated with a design that can roll along. So the idea was that if you're sitting at a table next to the glass, you can pull the shade to cast a shadow just at your desk, rather than darkening pulling a shade for the entire wall, because there was some seating there. So the idea is that, and you could move the shade, because it's like I would say a 4-foot panel. And so you could roll it to where you needed it and not darken the entire library. So it was kind of it's a cool system.
Yeah, just kind of cool.
Worked out.
I want to clarify though that those are separate systems. Like
They
the
are.
interior is not
Yeah.
the fritted glass. So what we have
Different system.
proposed for Marlborough is like if you were to look at this picture, and I'm not going to go to that one because that's hard to read. Okay, so if you were to look at this picture, I really zoomed in. You can see these black lines behind. Those are the mullions. So what we have proposed here in our budget are like roller shades per bay. So someone can, but Margaret said she doesn't want potentially the patrons rolling them up and down, but they would be able to individually roll them up and down. As opposed to like it all being connected as one thing, that it comes down as a unit and then it goes up. So they'd all be individually controlled. And that's what right now we have in the project. But just to clarify, the interior shade, whether it's the sliding or the pull down, is separate from the fritting.
Mhm. Yeah, got it.
Is the Webster design an option for us?
No, you hired different architects. But the
You mean
pattern of the
we
frit is
probably-
always custom, so it can
The
be
DNA
whatever
strain?
pattern you want.
Right,
So
we can't
that's
really
my question.
copy
We have a
that.
similar pattern to that.
You can have each pattern is a custom pattern, so there's very little off-the-shelf stuff. So I would imagine like what Mallory has shown on there as branches was LLB's thing, but they're always a custom thing because basically the glass that will be made for this project is custom made to fit the openings that have been designed. So to put the frit on it's all custom. So it's whatever we want. And it doesn't really matter if it's one line or 50,000. It's just the fact that you have to put a pattern on and put it in the kiln. The amount of frit on the glass is negligible to the price.
We can talk about what you like about Webster, but it's intellectual property to recopy it. So we don't want to copy it, but you guys also want your own look.
Yes.
So we can talk about what we like about Webster, and I don't know if everyone likes Webster in general over the options, but and then we could come up with another pattern.
I mean, the three options, if they're not four options that you presented, I didn't honestly have any appeal to them at all. There was nothing pulled at me. And some of them brought memories of the Minnesota library, which I thought was excessive when at our last meeting. So, I mean, that's my only concern is so far what we've seen so far doesn't warm my heart, but that's just my one opinion.
Right. So I think, but Steve and everybody, the purpose of this discussion is really not to focus on a particular pattern of frit, but the concept of frit versus the concept of a solar shade applied to the exterior of the building, either in an eyebrow fashion, like I'll use that term, like at the new elementary school, or in a more applied fashion over the upper portion, like Mallory showed in one of the other diagrams and drawings. It's really just the concept of frit inside the glass or some other solar just dissipation concept.
Okay.
I'm all for fritting. I think it's the least amount of there's the least amount of maintenance with fritting altogether, plain and simple.
Right. There's no maintenance with the fritting.
Right. All that other stuff is high maintenance.
Right.
Some of that stuff like we have on the new school, hey, it looks great on a new school, but I don't think it would look good there at all.
So, Andy, when you say maintenance, are we talking like washing or?
Yeah, cleaning, basically. And,
Alicia, are you
cleaning
sharing?
and maintaining.
I'm sorry?
Are you sharing? No, Mallory is sharing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oops. I'm just writing meeting minutes.
Yeah.
I'm just writing my own to keep.
Yep.
So were you good with my answer there, Steve?
Yeah, without question. I'm for frit. I just wasn't hot on those designs, and so I hope we'll have a chance to revisit those.
Yeah.
The designs of frit. Yeah.
Yep.
I agree.
Right. And unlike the first iterations of frit was like a film applied to either the interior or the exterior of the glass, so that did have some maintenance potential problems. This is applied to the interior surface, as Mallory described. She kind of glossed over it, but it's on the interior, sandwiched in between the panes of glass. So the only way that you get to the frit is if you break the glass.
Right.
So, just one question on that: will there be any kind of dust in between over the years, or even nothing? No bugs or no dust will be cut in between.
This is a typical window assembly for an insulated glaze unit. It has 2 panes of glass, it's sealed, and it's filled with air and argon for an insulated property. Not to say that if a bird doesn't hit the outside that it cracks, you're gonna have to replace the whole thing.
Right.
So that brings up what I was going to ask next. Replacement of glass. Does it fritting match? How does that all work?
If they would have the computer file, there'll be a computer file that will be part of your documents, the record documents of this. So if for some reason you have to replicate it, there is a computer file you can give to the glass manufacturer.
Okay.
Well, and will we have a supply of them after construction?
No.
Because each one is custom made. They cut the glass to fit the opening as designed, put the pattern on it, bake it, and then assemble the two pieces of glass, the glass stop, the frame, and bring it to the site. There's no backup because each opening is pretty much a unique size and condition on a building that they wouldn't necessarily have. You wouldn't store extra panes of exterior glass.
Okay.
Think
Even
of it
if we
as
didn't have the frit, you wouldn't store the glass
Extra glass.
extra.
you never get glass as an attic stock. And think of this as I'm greatly oversimplifying this, and it's not the real process, but I'm just trying to give you an idea. But think of a silk screening on the inner surface of the glass, and then it gets baked.
Yeah, I'm good with it. Yeah.
We'll need to discuss though everyone else's ideas, because we do need a jumping off point to go back to, tweak the design. So first we'd look for the vote to pick fritting over the other options, and then I want to have a quick discussion on providing LLB direction.
Something that might make it particular to Marlborough or to the Marlborough Library, some sort of twist that could be connective rather than being arbitrary, right, Mallory?
Mhm. Yes.
So can we have a vote in support of the going in the frit direction? Can I have a roll call vote? Margaret?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Samantha?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Tom DePercio?
Yes.
And Vinny?
Yes.
Did I forget anybody?
I think Dennis might be here on a.
Dennis jumped in?
He's muted.
But he's here.
He jumped in and he's muted. Okay. All right. And Dennis, what did you have to say?
Can you hear me?
And now?
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, yep, there he is.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm going to abstain at this point. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay. So thank you. That's it. And now to Mallory's question was, is there anybody can think of a graphic that they should explore, an avenue, something that's custom or particular to Marlborough, something that might make it personal, something like as insiders, do you have any thoughts?
Margaret, do you have any thoughts immediately? Because I have some.
I just know what I don't like.
Okay,
yeah.
that
And
helps.
I didn't like the drippy one. And I think it needs to be subtle, so it doesn't overpower things.
Right.
But no, I don't have a recommendation on a specific design, but I'm just concerned that it'll overpower. So my thinking is something subtle. What do you think, Steve?
So it's just a thought to throw against the wall. I mean, like, is it possible to put a city seals throughout it and maybe even like emulate the tortoise and the hare presentation that out front? I mean, is that too far of a stretch? Or if that's too far of a stretch, and you said we couldn't.
I think you want to keep it more organic and abstract, because those are very themed.
Then can we go for like a crystal or a hexagon image instead of the lines seem to be they seem to be unappealing whatsoever. And again, I have flashbacks of the presentation of the Minnesota one, and I thought those were not appealing at all.
Yeah.
I like the subtlety of Webster.
Okay. Anybody else? Thoughts?
Liked the tree branch graphic that you had, and maybe that with not in combination with the stripes, but maybe with something more subtle shading or.
Yep.
Yeah.
Could be or the tree branches and then, versions of that where it becomes more abstract, and then a version where it perhaps becomes a little more literal, or, she just needs a couple starting points.
What if could we get rid of the verticals on that one and add a little amber color, a little hue or something?
Yeah, you can definitely do anything. As Margaret said, we sort of want to keep it toned down just so it doesn't distract, because, you're going to see the Carnegie too. But we can definitely show that.
Margaret and I had a conversation after the last meeting, and the glass itself is prominent, and it needs to be softened, and I've yet to see the softening. So that's my concern.
But this has potential to do some of that, Steve, do you think?
Without the vertical, possibly.
Right.
Without the vertical lines.
Yep.
And go ahead.
I wonder if maybe looking at a pattern that's maybe more like waves instead of it being strictly horizontal or vertical might soften it a little bit more. Do you think that could?
I would get away from the horizontal vertical without question. It lacks creativity, and I think it's just, I don't know, I don't think it's appealing at all. And I would ask something that would last the test of time in terms of the 50 to 70 years that we want out of this, in terms of
right
appeal.
And just
yeah,
for the horizontal and vertical, just to explain it, we felt that would be the most I guess timeless is the word, just because you do have a lot of horizontality in the building, whether it's the stonework or all the different types of stonework, the brick, the cast stone, the actual building is very horizontal. Sometimes when you do shapes that are prominent now, like hexagons or circles, that can look dated quickly.
What about the brick pattern of the Carnegie? Could you do something similar? Would that be a?
I think that's interesting. I worry about. I mean, I'm going to say it. It's the whole prison-y aspect of it, and I think the vertical lines, harken to that. I don't see them particularly as classic. I more see them as more institutional.
Okay. Yep.
But that's an interesting idea about the. Is it too matchy with Carnegie? To have some kind of a brick pattern.
I think we could try to abstract it. I don't think we want to do exactly brick because you have a lot of brick everywhere. But
right.
Maybe I also think the brick will look what you don't want, which is horizontal, because brick is very rigid. But we could do some sort of abstraction of that. But what I'm hearing is something less rigid, less stripe, like vertical, horizontal. One thing I do want to ask that's sort of important that this last scheme shows is a different treatment of the pavilions compared to the actual Carnegie glass. How do you feel about differentiating that? Or do you want it all to be the same?
I think it has to complement both sides. So either two different ones or one that's going to be neutral enough to appeal to both sides. So.
I agree. It just depends on what direction we go,
Right.
Whether it works on both or not.
I think, Mallory, it might also matter. The Main Street side is obviously going to have this is the southern side, so it's going to be pretty intense on this side. It may on the but I can't tell. You have to do the sun study. Is the connecting piece going to have? I guess it is. Looking at your screen, it's the same exposure, so it may.
Yeah.
I think it's just something you have to study and present options. So we'll get there.
I think, so did we hear from everyone, John or Vinny or Andy, any other comments?
I'm with Margaret and Steve. I think it should definitely be very subtle, but it is going to be determined what kind of a pattern, but I would go with something very subtle.
Okay.
I agree with subtle, and I'm not big on the line thing myself. Whether they be vertical or horizontal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to drive by and look at something that's trying to look like a distressed look or something, Not that would be, but very subtle.
And I think that's the point, because that's the one that's that's the least amount of entrance, but that's the most exposure to people in terms of
Right.
curb appeal. So
But I think it's more apparent in these renderings than it will be in real life too.
Yes, yeah.
I don't want to risk the
Right.
That's what mock-ups are for.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stay with us.
So if we all feel good moving on, I can go into the interior images.
Sure.
Am I heard?
Oh, hi.
Yep. Go ahead, Dennis.
Well, I really think that this is such an important feature that seeing a real live sample might be to a great advantage, especially when you're talking about custom and increased costs. So I think it really should be, if the architects can direct us to a place where we could view something, that might be better.
Well, we have the Webster Library, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Road trip with lunch.
There's a couple of places.
You all have to drive your own
But
car.
I thought I heard somebody say they didn't like the Westfield feature. So if you're going to pick one, maybe we could go look at it.
But they're all
Or
custom.
if there is a mock-up that the company is willing to do, we could look at that.
Yeah, it's Webster, Dennis. They did it, and you know, I mean, I don't think they're open right now, but it might be worth at some point looking at Webster.
Well, I think they're probably doing the similar passing out of libraries as every other library is doing it. But you could probably make an appointment with the librarian, with Amanda, let her know you're coming, and arrange a time, and she can let you guys in. It's not a big deal.
Well, I don't know that you want to rely on my viewing. I think a group of people should take a look at it.
It's also, it's difficult. Dennis, I understand what you're asking for, but it's fairly difficult to achieve, because to see what the frit looks like on Webster, that'll give you an idea of what their pattern is and what it looks like. But if it's not the same pattern that's being proposed on our library, then it's kind of looking at an apple and an orange. You know it's a fruit, but it's gonna look different.
Tom, I agree with you. I agree with you in that, if the one you're selecting there's no place you can go look at it.
Tom, the only thing to your point, the one thing about Webster, it is subtle and it is appealing. I mean, that's that much I'll say. So that's the aim, I think, based on everybody else's comments, that we're looking for subtle. So I mean, we can do it through a mock-up for the next meeting, or we can go in the direction of Webster, but not exactly because of the proprietary of it. But.
Yeah.
I think it would be best if we sort of maybe tried to get a list of buildings around you guys that might have fritted glass other than Webster, because until we have a general contractor and a sub, this is not something that is very easy to get a mock-up of right now.
Yeah.
But we're talking about the design, because we've already accepted the fritted glass. So that's essentially what we're talking about.
Right. So I think we've got to do some searching and find some locations, even if they're commercial office buildings that have, fritted glass, that people can go and take a look at least from the exterior. And then you'll get some ideas of what you like / don't like. I think that's the the best course to take at this early juncture.
I agree, Tom.
Okay. Should we move into the interior?
Yep, if you guys are ready.
I would ask another question.
Yep.
We're shooting to get our DD drawings done. We can do that without the selection of glass, right?
Correct.
Well, we'll have the glass selected
It's not
with the frit pattern. It's just the pattern that's to be determined.
Right.
Okay.
We know we're going with a fritted glass. That's the whole purpose of that first vote. We know we're
Okay.
going with fritted glass. We know the extent, globally, how many square feet of glass we're doing, and it's the exact pattern is what's going to be determined.
Okay.
So, continuing to the interior, again, there's nothing to vote on. We're just sort of showing, let me get there, what's happening as far as the design meetings are for the interior. So just, and again, these are very quick, brief interior renderings. Some of the spots will be rendered in color once we have more of a design to them. This is a view from the first floor entry as soon as you enter the vestibule. Before I get too far, does anyone need me to pull up a plan to show where we're pointing from? I didn't think about that previously.
That would probably be helpful, Mallory.
Yeah.
For everybody.
Okay. You can ignore the markups. These are just comments that we've had with Margaret. So this is a picture or a PDF of the first floor plan. And as you guys know, the vestibule is right here inside the off of the courtyard. The first image is looking at in this red arrow direction. So you're standing right inside the vestibule and you're looking towards the study rooms, the director's office, admin's office into this corner. So what you're going to see is like the back of the Carnegie building, a little bit of glass, and then some offices. So that is this photo. We did not put any of the stacks in, the library stacks, just because you wouldn't be able to see the other side. And so what we want to show here is just sort of without the stacks, what is the actual architecture. You can see the columns, which is the structure in the building. You can see some of the glass, which is you'd start to see some of the fritted design on this glass. All of the glass along the edges are either public spaces or offices. All of the public spaces have a lot of glass, so it's easily supervised. There's not a lot of dark corners to hide into. The ceiling is a mix of soffits and ACT ceilings, which is best for maintenance and to be able to access that interstitial space. And then right now we're holding as a placeholder just sort of like these round pendants. It's not something that we're proposing, but these will be areas that there will be decorative light fixtures. One of the really cool things about this view is that you'll be able to see the back of the Carnegie and you'll be able to see the brick coin that's actually there now, and it'll become part of that interior environment. So we're not proposing to cover that with gyp or anything. It'll all be exposed. Tomorrow we're doing some exploratory work at the library. We're going to open up some walls. Our hope is that this wall is brick, and we're going to find out tomorrow. If not, we're going to have to put some gyp or wood paneling there to sort of indicate where the old extension was, the old addition was. And then all the way to the right, this is not the stair we're proposing again, but just the general location. And then you can start to see some of the glass from Witherby Street. The next view I'm going to show you is a view from if you're on the first floor and you were inside one of the small meeting rooms in the corner. And this is just to show you what a general one of these two meeting rooms look like. And it would have, again, all glass panels, a glass door. It would have base cabinets, lockable for storage. We would have a TV screen up here mounted to the wall, and then there would be furniture like with flip top tables that you can move around in here. So a very flexible space of really being able to do whatever Margaret needs to as far as program needs. The next view is if you were in the young adult space, and as soon as you come into the vestibule, you see the reference desk, and then if you come into the young adults room, standing in the corner here, looking out towards West Main Street, and the rendering will show the glass corner here, and then some program rooms. So this is that photo. This is shown with the stacks because we wanted to show the staff that we have low stacks in this area. Even though there's more, there's low stacks so that the staff has easy visibility over the stacks of the young adults in this space, and that nobody's going to be hiding in any nooks. Again, the rooms into the program room have glass. The glass beyond is looking out onto West Main Street, so we would see the fritting here as well, the glass frit. And then these two doors and glass openings are going into library staff workspaces and offices. This space is right now under like a complete redesign and really being turned into a true YA space. So the next time you see it will look different. The light fixtures are going to be changed. There's going to be probably graphics on the wall. The carpets will be designed. And we're working with Margaret and the young adults librarian to sort of make this space come alive. The next room image that we have is if we were in the meeting room, and if you're looking all the way across in this upper right-hand corner, looking back at the glass wall here, and then at some of the storage. As you know, this room is proposed to have a movable partition that you can use as 2 rooms or 1. The image I'm going to show you is as if it was 1 room. So standing in the corner, you can see a lot of natural light coming in, and this is a really great facade here. And then we've got the projectors in this room that will recess into the ceiling. So right now, this is the only room that has actual projectors confirmed versus screens, but we're still going to reconfirm that with Mark at some point. And you can see the 2 projectors that are ceiling mounted so that they can be used as 2 rooms or 1 room. And then this little division in the ceiling is where that room would divide. The next image going into the 2nd floor is a view if you were standing at the cafe, at the entry to the cafe, looking all the way down. This one has had a minor few tweaks. The intent of this room was to have a large blank wall here for a rotating gallery for art on this wall. And then we've recently decided today to eliminate these bookshelves and put a high counter here for people to sit at and like use as like a charging station, basically. So this is where people can come to eat or drink or chat in this space. The next image is if you were looking, the next 2 images I'll say. The first one is as soon as you enter the children's room, looking straight across into the preschool area, and we'll see the circulation room on the right, or the service desk on the right here. And then the image right after that I'm going to show you is if you were all the way in the corner of the children's room looking back at the entry. Again, this is another space that is very much under design with Margaret and with the children's librarian. So this space will be very much transformed probably the next time you see an image and a rendering catered towards a younger crowd. So if you're standing at the entry here, you've got, again, looking straight into the preschool room with the service desk on the right-hand side. Right to the left here is actually part of the Witherby Street glass facade that you can see out onto the courtyard and Witherby Street, actually. And then you can start to see Spike's cage right here and millwork piece, which is going to become one of our design elements to sort of help design this space, along with some of their current ideas of a more animal woodsy theme, basically. The next image from the children's room, looking back at the entry, again, this is an image that shows the stacks because we wanted the staff members to see that the stacks are only 3 high, so it should be pretty easy to see over these stacks and that no one's going to get themselves in trouble in a little nook. The next image is if you were, as soon as you come into the vestibule here, if you're looking in this or standing in this sort of zone right here, and you're looking out onto West Main Street over, and this is actually an image where you would see the fritted glass here, and you'd be looking over these stacks. So you'd be able to see the circulation on your right-hand side, and that is this image. So you can see the glass fritting. This was an old frit pattern that we were looking at, and it was horizontal lines that would change. You can see the circulation desk here on your right-hand side with the circulation room behind there, and then the cafe is actually right here. And then these 2 rooms down here with the glass are 2 more study rooms. A lot of the spaces you've seen have, again, that drop ACT ceiling with pendant linear light fixtures and then some decorative fixtures that are to be determined. The last image is if you were standing at the circulation desk or if you were a staff member and you're looking down into this, we've decided to call it the Great Hall because we didn't want people to feel like this was a corridor. And so this is looking back at the children's room. And that is this image. So you can see here, you've got the glass on the left side looking out onto the courtyard and Witherby Street. The open stair will be here. You've got some low stacks here and really great visibility into the children's space with some taller stacks on the right-hand side. And then this ceiling will be a little bit different, a little bit more playful. It'll probably be it'll be a wood ceiling with some lights running in plane of the pattern. So
I just have to preface and say it may be depending on where our price comes in at. We hope it will be a wood ceiling.
It will be a wood ceiling, we're confident.
All right.
This place is also planned to have a wood floor, so maybe that will have to go first to sort of create this wood envelope. Wood really brings a lot of warmth to a library, whereas like the remainder of the ceilings, because they're ACT, they're often white and it can start to look very static. So we're hoping to bring some warmth in this zone here. And that is the last image, and I can scroll back to any of them, but they're still very much in progress and sort of just for you guys to see conceptually and volumetrically what's happening and how the design is laying out.
I've got a question for Margaret.
Yep.
So have you or have the other librarians reviewed these interior designs, and how do you feel okay about the sight lines right now?
We do. Yes, we have. We have had a couple of meetings about them, and people really thought they'd work quite well.
I have another thought about the fritted glass pattern, if I could.
Yeah.
Sure.
What about a pattern that was sort of a subtle abstract take on bookcases and bookshelves? Maybe the shelves, you'd have some rigid lines for the shelves, but the shapes that would represent the books could be randomized and sort of create a gradient, maybe?
I actually just did that on a job, and we can show you pictures, and it looks so good. But that I didn't even think about that. But you're right. They're sort of like, different height books, and some of them are leaning, some of them are straight. I really love that idea. I don't know how you guys feel about it.
Well, I think it embraces a pattern that is similar to possibly Webster, but like the tree branches we talked about, broken glass, we'd have to like match that last piece, right? Almost like a puzzle where, a pattern that is almost not generic in nature, but easy to replace without having to match the seams and things of that nature.
So all of the patterns we have would be what we call seamless patterns. And so, if it's broken at a seam, wherever it's broken, you're going to have to obviously replace the whole panel. So the next panel that goes in would match that theme and that seam, so that it doesn't really matter which glass. It's our job to make sure that we provide a seamless pattern.
Great.
We particularly like this shot, the one that that one. It just seemed like better use of that transitional space from the circulation area to the children's department, and it gives the parents something to look at and browse as their kids are in the space. And we just think it's much nicer because it's wider and provides just a wonderful transition to the children's space. This is one of our this is one of our favorite spaces.
Yeah, you called it the Great Hall, like it was going to be something bad, and I looked at it, and it looks pretty nice to me.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought the Great Hall meant a good thing.
Yeah.
As long as there's wooden ceilings.
That's how we meant it.
Do you need us to vote on anything right now?
No.
No. We just sort of wanted to hear feedback. If someone was like vehemently opposed to something, like some of the glass patterns, that would be good to know now. But we're just sort of giving you a progress shot of what we've been working on with Margaret over the last month.
I mean, I think at this phase with the interior, as long as it's really like the people who work in the building, as long as they feel comfortable with the sight lines, and this is adequate for for purposes of both security and usefulness and everything else. I mean, I think that's great.
Yep.
Is the furniture that's being showed any representative of what's coming our way, or is that going to be another?
No, that will be
A whole
actually
series of
typically we would do that once you start construction, so you guys are going to hold for a long time on that,
which is fine. I want to stay as far as we can from the furniture that's been presented so far.
And one of the things I hope to do is to evaluate some of what I like to think of as mid-century modern furniture that was part of the original, the edition back in the 60s, and to see if any of that furniture can be updated a little bit with different fabric and reuse, because I think it's really lovely furniture. It just needs to be reupholstered and refurbished a little. So we're going to do our best as a nod to the addition to try to reuse some of that furniture in our new building.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, some of it's really classic.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree.
Well built stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
Good work so far, I'd say.
Yep. We're getting excited.
Oh, is there anything else, Mallory? Is there anything else on the presentation list?
No. Not. I'm done, actually. That was it. Unless I'll throw it back to you, Alicia. I don't think we can hear you, though.
Sorry, I had muted myself. Sorry. So the next thing on the agenda is the schedule update. So as Mallory mentioned, the DD drawings are going to be sent to the estimators in 2 weeks on June 24th, I believe. Isn't that right? That's what I have down.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so the next meeting, the next second Tuesday would be July 8th, which would be too soon after that. We wouldn't have time to finish the estimate and reconcile it. The 4 weeks after that would be the 15th, which might be tight, but we could do that. But what works for the committee in terms of to be able to review the cost estimate, which would also cost estimate would be one piece we would review, and the second would be the cost estimate in the project budget, right? And review the project budget. With the 15th of July or the 22nd of July, I think everybody has to check their quarantine /
One thing I wanted to ask is, can we or are we going back to Thursdays, or is Wednesdays now a thing?
I think Thursdays are better for Tom Abel. I know that he has a commitment on Wednesday. It's probably why he's not here.
Okay. So that would be the 16th or the 23rd. So I'm asking who's here, if anybody has a preference as to which date.
Either are fine for me right now.
Anybody?
Either me as well.
Yep, same.
I think the 16th would work best for me. I have a vacation the next week. We could, hopefully.
Okay. So that's fine. We will plan on the 16th. If we run into issues, we'll certainly be in communication, but that would be our goal.
Right.
For DD. And when we receive the drawings on the 24th, I will put them in a Dropbox and send an email out to people who want to review drawings and the documents. You're welcome to people who it is you have no interest or don't know what you're looking at. Feel free to ignore my email. So it's either way, it's up to you. And if you have comments, if you email them back to me, responding to that email, in the email, I'll give you a timeline and deadline to get your comments back to me. I will collect all the comments and send them all on to the architect as a full list.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And at that time, will we see a detailed schedule?
When you say, what would you like for a detailed schedule in terms of
a timeline schedule?
I think we're aiming towards having by the end of the year, I think, wrapping up with the CDs, and then we're going to go to CDs to.
Well, the reason I brought it up is that apparently dollars are becoming a real issue with this. We just had a 2-year delay.
Right.
So if we can see what the schedule of values might be over the scheduled timeline, it might make people feel more comfortable. And as to when the money has to be spent.
What do you mean schedule of values in relation to the design?
You have a schedule and you perform certain functions. Those functions cost a certain amount of money.
I think we would wait to get that. Alicia, I'll let you do it.
I think the idea is to finish with our charge as a committee, I believe, is to get to about 95% construction documents, and we're on hold until we hear otherwise from the mayor directly. We don't have
in the last meeting, the mayor told us to reach completed documents.
Correct.
That's what I'm saying. It's pretty much. We're going to be pretty 98%. Are you more comfortable with that? Because we're going to have to. There might be some tweaks in there, like the dates and some things like that.
You don't have to satisfy me. You have to satisfy the mayor.
Yeah.
No, okay.
But Dennis, I just want to make sure that everybody understands. We will establish a block schedule for construction and saying that it's, we believe it's going to take 18 months, 24 months, 27 months, whatever the time frame is. But we're not going to provide a schedule of values that a typical contractor would with, they're going to be at this phase of construction in this time frame. That comes from the contractor. It doesn't come from the designers or from us as the OPM.
I didn't realize that, Tom. If we had a construction manager, they would be providing that right along before we go to the final bids.
That's correct, but we do not have, this is a design bid build project, not a CM project.
No, but I just thought the OPM would handle that.
As I said, we'd give you, this is the overall total schedule, but not break it down in construction phases like that.
Okay.
Are there any other questions?
I just wanted to make a point to talk about what happened at the city council meeting. John, do you want to update people on the decision regarding 25 Witherby?
Yeah, we did go ahead and give the mayor the authority to go ahead and purchase that property for $481,291. So that did authorize the mayor to go ahead. So we did vote Monday night to transfer those funds.
Great, thank you for that update. That is our other issue. Sorry.
That's 25 Witherby.
Yes.
Yeah.
25 Witherby.
Thank you. I'm gonna write it down right.
Thank you, John. That really is our other issue that came out of our public sessions, was the concern about parking, and this really gives us several additional parking spaces and will really help us out quite a bit. So thank you to you, John, and the city council for doing that.
And thank you, Margaret, too, as well. I know Tom DePercio, Commissioner Galoni and his staff. I certainly appreciate the letters going out to the abutters when they did demolish the buildings, and certainly keeping that area as clean as possible. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
So Tom DePercio, will the city be able to do the survey work for that parcel, or do we have to figure something else out?
No, I talked to John already about that. We'll do that survey work.
Okay, that's great, because then we can get that over to Margaret for the civil engineer to design the parking area now that we have both lots.
Yep.
Perfect.
Okay.
Excellent.
Okay, I think that's it, unless anybody has any other questions.
I just have a quick point. I'm sorry, only because we talked about the last meeting, and it's the trees that exist in front of the buildings right now. I started paying attention to what is there, and on the street level, on curbside, there's an abundance of trees. So I would just encourage us to try and make choice selections of what trees to keep there, understanding that some trees are probably gonna have to come down. But beyond that, on the property are at least 2 beautiful Japanese maples. I would love to do everything we could to preserve them. And if we can't do both, at least one. But I mean, there's those Japanese maples, I'd love to see us preserve them. So.
Yep. Okay. Anybody else?
Motion to adjourn.
Made by Steve. Can I have a second on that, please?
I second. Andy.
Andy's gonna second. I was like, if you guys want to stay and hang out, then
have a good time.
do that. Can we have a roll call vote? Margaret?
Yes.
Andy, obviously. John Irish?
Yes.
Samantha?
Yes.
Thank you. Steve? Obviously. Tom DePercio?
Yes.
Vinnie Farisi?
Yes.
And Dennis Kavanaugh? Dennis probably muted himself again. Well, we're at a majority at either way. So have a good evening, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Good night.
night.
Bye.
Good night.